The next ratios are referred to as leverage ratios. Leverage speaks to how much debt do we have in the company? How much debt do we have? Leverage ratios. The first leverage ratio is called debt to equity. How much debt do we have on the balance sheet versus how much equity do we have? So we look at a balance sheet. So we look at this balance sheet and we see that we have a total of $290,000 in liabilities, total liabilities, 150 plus 140, current plus long-term, 290 in total liabilities, divided by shareholder equity. Again, we look at the balance sheet and we see $120,000 in equity. So we take the 290 divided by the 120 and we get debt to equity of 2.42. Debt to equity ratio of 2.42. So what is that telling us? Well, it tells us that for every dollar that we've invested in this company, we've borrowed $2.42. For every dollar that we've invested, we've borrowed $2.40, $2.42. The average small business debt to equity ratio is about 1. The average for small businesses is a debt to equity ratio of 1. So that tells us that this company, this particular company that we're using, has more debt than average. Not good or bad, we're not judging, we're just saying on average, they've got more debt than the average small business. I can also share with you that for a bank, the highest debt to equity ratio you can have and still be considered for a loan is 4. If your debt to equity ratio is higher than 4, you're considered unbankable. No bank will loan you money if this number is 4 or higher. So you want to keep this under 4. The average is 1. For this company, we calculated it to be $2.42 or 2.42. The next leverage ratio is called interest coverage. Interest coverage looks at to what degree are we able to match or to make our interest payments. So we calculate interest coverage by taking our operating profit, adding back our depreciation expense, and dividing it by our annual interest charges. Both these numbers come from the income statement. 47,000 divided by 20,000, we get interest coverage of 2.35. So what does that tell us? What that tells us is that for every dollar of interest expense, we're generating profit of about $2.35. For every dollar of interest expense, we've got profit of $2.35. Well, think about who would be keenly interested in this ratio besides yourself, and it would be the banker, because if the banker is lending you money, they want to know at the very least you're generating enough profit to match your interest charges. So at the very least, this ratio needs to be 1. At the very least, we want this ratio to be 1. The higher, the better. 2.35, that's a pretty good interest coverage ratio, because it's telling me that my profits are twice as much as my interest payments. That's a pretty good ratio. Okay.